All right, so our gorgeous Mr. Teddy is ready to do some practice. You want to do a couple find its? So we're going to warm up a little bit with some find its, and we're going to dive into some loose leash walking. I also wanted to show you how I've been working a bit more with the head collar. Again, head collars are not a tool that I just instantly slap onto a dog and have them just attempt to feel comfortable with them. Head collars can be very much so used incorrectly as well. So if, let's say, for example, your dog is a very big puller, or they're reactive, or they're struggling with something, and you're looking to a tool to magically stop or resolve your problems, you're more than likely going to have another tool that either makes things worse, potentially suppresses behavior, but doesn't actually get at the root cause as to why is the dog responding to things in that manner. So we want to make sure, since Mr. T is going to be a very big gentleman, he's only around 6 months and over 80 pounds, so he's going to be a gigantic boy. So right now, as I'm blabbing, I'm just doing some easy, fun find-its for him just to keep him engaged and moving around the environment. So he is working typically on either a Y-shaped body harness, which is where I really love to start everybody off on a harness. The reason behind that, again, it's not going to affect his movement. It's going to make sure that there is no pressure around his neck and trachea and soft tissues around his neck and spinal area where he could get an injury. This doesn't mean that your dog can't learn, for example, through practice and with us helping them, how to walk softly, potentially on a body harness only, or even potentially on a nice flat buckle collar. Though, remember that if your babe is still learning and they're sometimes struggling with either novelty or other creatures or other dogs or whatever the thing might be, and they're rushing and getting to the end of their gear and pulling hard, then that's where I would not recommend to use a collar or something similar, because it's going to apply, again, all of that pressure to the neck and trachea area. Dogs actually have thinner skin than we do. They have less layers. So for them, their neck can be more sensitive when it comes to using certain types of equipment. Again, we're going to see if we can practice a little bit with the head collar, but first I want to show you how you'd be working it. So I know earlier I had shown in some previous videos where he might be booping his nose in through the muzzle part of the head collar and feeding for those, creating good associations of attempting on his end to practice with the gear. Head collars, for example, should never be put on a long lead or a flexi leash. That is a really great way to cause some pretty good damage to your dog. Remember that on a longer lead where there's more length for them to run faster and then come to an end, potentially, we want to use a body harness. I know that we've discussed why a Y-shaped body harness is better than a restrictive or a no-pull harness that tightens and changes the gait, but also the physique of the dog. So he is in a Y-shaped body harness, so his whole arm and shoulder blade, you gotta go find it, can move on its own without getting restricted or changing his gait, which could lead to problems down the road. So back to this handsome guy. When it comes to the head collar, I want to make sure that the headgear does not always instantly equal, like we're going to go do something that's overwhelming or too exciting. So I like to practice, if I'm conditioning a dog to a muzzle or a head collar, the reason I like to get them comfortable using muzzles as well is we have dived into the benefits of muzzle training, why it can be so helpful in some previous videos. But again, if your babe, the only time they get restricted in their movement or held, or for example, end up wearing a muzzle is when something bad is about to happen to them, the muzzle is just one more moment where they lose autonomy, control, and the feeling of safety is out the window. So muzzle training is something we should do with our puppies to our adult dogs. So that way, if there is a potential for needing one, it's one less thing that's going to scare them when we have to potentially work on something. So if your dog were to get injured and they're lashing out and trying to bite you as you're trying to nicely pick them up to go assist them, that could be a moment where having a dog that's comfortable wearing a muzzle would be one less thing to have an injury for your end as well. So right here with Mr. T, all I'm doing is this is, again, one of the brands that I typically would recommend. This is called a halty head collar. There is another brand like a walk-in train, a few other versions out there. I don't like the Gentle Leader or similar brands because of the fact the muzzle has to be very snug, like the band around the muzzle has to be tight to keep the noseband in place. With this halty, he got it a little slimy with some extra snacks, is this has these little side straps on his cheeks that would keep the noseband in place. It's very much so almost like a horse's halter when you're leading a horse from, like, let's say their stall to their paddock or vice versa. So right now in the beginning, I was just feeding him for booping his nose through the head collar. So as he's doing really well with that, what I like to do is then start to implement some of the head collar being worn while not doing anything that involves going for a walk. So for example, we might feed, I'm gonna feed, and we were practicing with the strap earlier and practicing clipping it. So that way, again, it's one less thing to feel flustered with. He's like, hold up, lady, my hands were so slimy, I couldn't clip it. So if, let's say, for example, he has a moment where it's a little bit hard because of my end being slimy, what I would recommend is just take your time with it. So notice how, like, right there, I didn't keep it going. I just let go and let it fall off so it wasn't gonna be too stressful. I don't want the puppy to think that this is a scary or negative thing. So even though, again, we're trying to implement something new, nice. Ready? Beautiful. So now I might go, and I'm going to actually loosen this just a little bit more. So it's a little bit more the appropriate size for this gigantic man. Ready? Find it. So we want to make sure that as we're practicing anything with our babes, from skill set to behavior to, let's say, gear or tools, is that we want to make sure their body language and their comfort range is not changed. If, for example, you are doing cooperative care, which is, again, getting your dog to feel comfortable offering their body or certain procedures to being done, if they're shutting down or reacting, we are going way too fast and typically rushing a lot of the steps. Just like hand them all over. So I would highly recommend to, if you're seeing that there's behavior change, then we probably are rushing it and making it too challenging. So right here, I'm going to feed a little bit throughout. Then what I like to do is let it slide off, and then he can try it again. So we're breaking it down into steps. So I want him to be the one to move into my space and come check it out. So I'm not the one going and, like, putting it on him or chasing him with it. Oh my gosh, it gets stuck in your jowl. That's embarrassing. So another option too is, let's say as you're feeding, he could be then chewing and crunching away on some of the snacks, and then you could clip this lovely guy if your slimy hands start to work. Good job. So we were practicing with him wearing it, and now again, he's just wearing it. It's something a little bit new. It's almost like as if you've never worn sunglasses or eyeglasses. It can feel a little bit funny. So he's used to typically just wearing either the collar while he's hanging around the house, or, for example, wearing the harness, which again is around his body. So right now what I'm trying to do is just get him up and moving and doing a couple little fun find its while he's wearing the head collar. I would keep this session typically short and sweet, so it's not too overwhelming for this handsome guy. But let's say, for example, you're going to practice now doing some loose leash walking, even without a leash, while you're working him. Like, you got to chew them. You good? While you're working in the home. You could do this in your yard if your yard is fenced and it's safe to do so. If not, have a longer lead or a leash that is a regular 6 foot attached to his body harness. Nice booping. He's like, I would like to do some more touches. Ready? Touch? Yes. Nice. Ready? Touch? Yes. What a brilliant boy. So I just make it fun to, while you're wearing the head collar, ready? Touch? Yeah, good job. That the head collar does not instantly equal getting restrictive. So if, let's say, he goes to paw, ready? We're going to do a little find it. And I want to give him a little breather in just a second before he gets too flustered by trying this new thing. Good job. So I'm going to do a little find it here, and we're going to take off the head collar. So I want to always take things off before they get too flustering. You're just such a furry, slimy guy. There you go. Perfect. So you'd want to do short and sweet little sessions. If, let's say, when you're trying even just getting the nose through the head collar part of this little muzzle section, just do some touches with the head collar maybe in your hand. So it doesn't always have to be the full step. But the reason we want to go ahead and practice a bit with the head collar is, I know some folks have been given sort of the excuse like, oh, well, the dog is so big, you probably should put them in more of an aversive tool like a choke or a prong. or a pinch, whatever you want to call them. So the problem with using something that either restricts the dog's airflow or does feel uncomfortable, the only reason those tools work is because they don't feel good. So since they are uncomfortable or they restrict something or they feel painful, your dog is actually trying to avoid the correction. So it's not that they're actually learning what not to do. They're just worried they're gonna get harmed. So you can also start to create negative associations with the environment, you or other things like other dogs or people while using adversive tools. So if, let's say, for example, Mr. T, who's an easy-go-lucky, kind of happy-go guy, if he starts to notice that when he's wearing, let's say, for example, prong collar, and he pulls into the prong and there's a dog ahead or there's a person nearby pulling and now it hurts while you're near that new friend, eventually he might start to associate that it's always uncomfortable and something hurts and kind of bites me when friends are nearby or when I get excited or overwhelmed. So a lot of times in an attempt to control the dog physically, we forget how to help them mentally first, so that way physically it's not an issue. But if we're always trying to correct a behavior we don't like, we're still not getting at the root cause. Why is it happening? And have I actually educated the dog in how to do that skill? So I find that adversives are, again, a little bit of a cop-out, and then your welfare is not on the dog side. It's the convenience factor for us. So I know that might agitate some folks because they feel that potentially the only way to teach a response or to tell the dog they're wrong is to harm them in the process. We have thankfully gone far away from that, most of us, when dealing with children and other people, and that violence does not stop violence. So when, for example, and he says, I'm laying in the puddle for now. Ready, Teddy? We'll see if we can get, ready? Come. He's like, I guess so. What a smart man. Come here. Oh my goodness, look at you. So if I don't actually have to hit my children to get them to learn a lesson, we probably also don't have to harm other animals as well to have them learn sort of life skills. Oh, excuse me. I was going to put your bed down so you could lay here with us. Go ahead. So I'm not saying this is what you guys are doing. Thankfully, the dog training industry is growing. It is maturing. It did have a few setbacks because since the industry is unregulated, anybody can say they're a dog trainer, and some even will steal the behaviorist title, which actually would come with veterinary school. But, you know, some of us are, you know, tweaking things. So there's moments where, because the industry is so not regulated, there's going to be a lot of outdated information and materials out there that give you flashy before and afters, but most of the time the welfare of the dog is not really there. So it's more either they want a dog that is legitimately a robot or a dog that shows no real emotion. And when we start to break down an animal to fit into our standards, I feel like we are forgetting why we got the animal in the first place. So I know for me, my dogs are my friends, they're my companions, they're technically like my babies. I still respect them as dogs and want to give them dog-centric outlets that make them feel happy and content. But if we start to use tools and methods that startle, suppress, scare, or even hurt, at what point should that be building trust? So this is where if we want a dog that looks to us for support when they're having a hard time, we can't make them feel more scared when they're having a hard time. So safety is so crucial for behavior change, but also for a relationship. And this is where, you know, again, not to get triggering, but there's going to be moments where there have been some friends or family members that maybe were verbally or sometimes physically not very nice to us. And we were always kind of apologetic, like maybe it was our fault that we just got into trouble, though technically it might be their end that's not being so nice. So walking on eggshells to try to prevent a repercussion from something or someone is not a very happy way to live. So if, let's say, one day they're really sweet on you, the next day they're not, it's not a very nice rapport where you feel safe around that person, because you never know when they're going to have a good day or a bad day. So for dogs who culturally don't understand much of what we're doing, and vice versa from both species, we want to make sure that what we're doing is building resilience and comfort and safety in our dogs so they can fit into the weird human world we've created for them. So Mr. T is doing a stellar job with the head collar, but I would highly recommend to go that route versus a prong collar, versus a choke. Because for him, he's not going to realize that his pulling is because he's excited and should be instead walking by our side. But for safety reasons, since he's going to be a bigger boy, I prefer to use a head collar and condition him to that than to use something that actually does hurt when he goes to pull. Head collar shouldn't really be causing harm unless we're using it really inappropriately without conditioning, and we should always be using it on a 6-foot lead or shorter. So if you're finding that you like to rotate, I would recommend start him off on the body harness and you practice between the two. When needed, maybe you use the head collar, and other times you're using just the body harness. So ready? We'll go into a down. So, but for Mr. T, I think he's doing a really great job. He's like, I'm exhausted. You so hungry? He's like, lady, I'd like to go romping. We'll do a few more find-its then if you want to wiggle. So for the handsome guy, if you're having struggles with the head collar or you're not really sure what brand or what size, do check in. Again, I'm never going to force anybody to change up what they want to do with their babes, but I do like to try to educate that from the dog's perspective. A quick fix on our end might feel really gratifying because we really love instant gratification. We order something online, it comes the next day or even the same day. We push a button and we get that thing right then. So a lot of times we're almost forgetting what it takes to sometimes learn and practice and get there over time. And training and behavior change in a dog or even in us, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So, and it's something that we want to keep doing. So we kind of got to keep maintaining, just like I mentioned a little earlier with Mr. Z, is training is not something that we do to the dog, it's something we do with them. And it's also going to be moments where when your puppy is a puppy to a teenager to an adult, we want to keep maintaining. So you don't all of a sudden decide not to do maintenance on your vehicle just because you've had it for a year and give up. Your car is not going to do so well. So maintenance for us and maintenance for him, all very good things. But maybe we'll give, he's like, I'm going to go lay in the puddle. We'll give Mr. T a little break. We'll sneak him out for a little potty. But I would highly recommend to, oh good, he's getting a drink. Work a bit with the head collar in and around your home, because if you're worried about being able to safely walk him, I would still gauge the environment and are we revving the engine a little too fast. But also if he's doing stellar and it's more of a, I'm worried he's going to be able to pull me into the roadway, or he might see something, get scared and want to pull, those would be moments where, of course, using his harness and head collar might be a great setup. So we'll give Mr. T a little break because he is living in his little wet puddle right now, and we'll rotate.